when we decided to do something big, we created this vision to create a $400 million hospitality company off of a $400,000 down payment.
Yes, it's crazy.
$400,000 down payment is going to become a $400 million hospitality company.
And that's the true power of commercial real estate investing right there.
Hands down.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today feels like a new day as a real estate investor, as we just had the election last night. Donald Trump won, and it was not even close. This is a big day for real estate investors, big day for entrepreneurs, and so super excited for the economy moving forward, and really excited for our guest today. I got someone who is doing big things in the hostel space, doing big things in the hospitality space. He actually is turning a $400,000 down payment into $8 million of hostels. I got none other than my guy, Nate Dogg Saints here. Nate, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, Rich, man, it's been too long. I'm pumped to be here.
Dude, stoked to freaking finally connect in person. You're in our hotel investing.com mastermind, and I feel like I already know you because we've been hanging out. I've had your partner Michael Russell on the podcast before, but yeah, it's crazy how you feel like you know someone and then you meet them in person for the first time ever, but it's like we already know each other.
Well, can I touch on that for a second?
Yeah, of course.
So before we jump into it here, my biggest passion in life and my biggest, what I feel like is my just God-given purpose is to just to have an impact on people's lives, to help them become their best self. It's like leadership is my passion, and behind it is just really helping people become their best self. So although you and I have never met in person, I know that when I fast forward 20 years from now and I look back at 2024, the impact that you've had on me as a mentor, as somebody that's helped me grow in a tremendous way, I will always look at 2024 as my Rich Sommers year. You've had a huge impact on me, and if I could impact someone like you've impacted me, I know that I'm doing the right things.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot, and in all honesty, it's you guys putting in the work, and regardless of what life, what obstacles or what things would have been thrown your way, you guys would have found a way to be successful because you guys have that attitude, you guys have that mindset that successful people have. And it's like, hey, no matter what is thrown our way, we're going to figure it out, we're going to push through, and we're going to evolve and constantly get better. But it's been inspiring for me to be around you guys and to see the growth, to see everything that you guys have been doing. And this has kind of been the year of growth for you guys. I mean, you guys have said yes to a lot of different opportunities. You started working with Rick English, my business coach. You guys cleaned up a lot of the back end stuff, and now you guys are looking at larger properties. You're looking at a bunch of properties here in San Diego, but this is just the beginning for you guys. You guys are just getting warmed up. So super excited to have you guys as part of the group.
Yeah, well, thank you. And when you say we would do it anyway, I agree. Championship mindset.
Yes.
We're going to find a way to get it done. But anytime that you can find a way to compress time through mentorship, there's what value are we going to put on 3 to 5 years worth of saving? When you really contemplate that to me is we're compressing time by having a mentor like you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And I'm a big believer in having support at every single level. So I'm a part of a handful of masterminds myself as a member. And then, I got coaches at every level, right? The business coach is huge. And I think when you have support at every level, it really shortcuts the path from point A to point B. Ultimately does save you a ton of time, saves a lot of headaches and all that sort of thing. And I think the real power is the network, getting around like-minded individuals. I always say, if you're out there listening to this podcast right now and you're not making the kind of money you want to be making, you don't have access to the real estate deal flow that you want to have access to, it's simply because you're not shaking enough hands. You don't know enough people. Not enough people know who you are. And, one of the best ways to combat that is to get plugged into these groups of other like-minded individuals, people that are forward-thinking, people that have abundance mindsets. Because I always say, get in rooms where your dreams are others' realities. It's the quickest way to improve your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I look back at like one of the earliest impacts in my life was Tony Robbins. I went to Unleash the Power Within, and it just unlocked a lot. But the one thing that I've always taken from that, and probably spoken almost every meeting I've ever led, is success leaves clues. And so if you can find that mentor like you have been to us, where you've already accomplished, you're further along in your journey than we were when we met you, and we just look at the blueprint that you've laid out, it's like, okay, I had zero social media experience. I lived in a bubble on Maui for 30 years, and to now be stepping out into the uncomfortable zone of, hey, we've released the Hotel Investor Playbook podcast, our Instagram. I didn't have social media, LinkedIn. Like I went on LinkedIn, I went and basically posted twice, and in that second post, I had somebody that recognized me from my career and offered me a 7-figure sales leadership position in 2 posts. Like, oh, you're available? Here, let's try to grab you. Obviously, I turned it down because of what we're building, but just that wouldn't have happened without the blueprint that you've helped us create.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's crazy what happens in terms of like opportunities and doors that open up for you if you just kind of like put yourself out there. I mean, you guys started your podcast, you guys are doing social media content now, you're getting plugged into all these groups. And so, I mean, I can't imagine the doors and opportunities that have opened for you guys this year versus what you guys had the year before.
The network, when I look at where we are today, it's almost like I feel like I'm living in another world. Just the network of connections, like-minded people on their journey that are way further along than us that now we just have access to in any moment. It's been life-changing.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this right now and you guys are interested in the hotel stuff, interested in learning more about the hotel stuff, I'm hosting a 2-day boutique hotel investing challenge this weekend, November 9th and 10th. So you guys can still get in. There's a couple spots left. hotelinvesting.com/webinar to save your seat. So anyways, that said, man, there's so much to dig into here regarding your story and all that. But my first question for you, man, is like, talk about what it was like, kind of like transitioning. You were in sales. You and Michael were selling timeshares. And I always say like sales is the number one skill that you could learn as an entrepreneur, a real estate investor. Everything that we do is sales, right? Negotiating these deals, raising private capital, being a leader on your team. A lot of that is sales. You got to sell your vision to the team and get everyone rowing in the right direction. And so I think if you can have the sales skills and then you can learn the real estate investing strategy, that's a pretty deadly combination. And so what was it like transitioning from sales to like, hey, I'm a real estate investor now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I had been, since I was 22 and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and back, that was many years ago. But I sent out my first capital raising letter to purchase my first home. So I'd been, purchasing real estate throughout, the past 25 years. But to go from a sales career in building the most successful performance-based sales team in a $20 billion industry, what it's done in taking that skill set and then transferring it into creating a world-class hospitality company with a hospitality portfolio, the parallels are, there are so many parables that it's hard to really articulate. But I would say that my own strength has been team building. In sales, number one, to be able to be a leader and to teach and to take and get the most out of people. If you look at that skill set and how that transfers into building our vision, a $400 million hospitality company, you have to have the right who's in place, and you have to be able to build them and have long-term sustainability with them in alignment. I think that skill has transferred in a pretty spectacular way. In fact, if you look at the partnership that I have with Mike Russell, when we partnered, we have very complementary skill sets. So I had championship pedigree in leadership. He had championship pedigree in execution. So when you put an integrator and a visionary and a leader together, magic happens. So those skills in sales, I mean, think about it. A salesperson, they bet on themselves every single day. A salesperson has to understand that taking no's is a part of it, and has to go through ups and downs, and has to have develop a mindset, a championship mindset to really get the most out of what they're doing. And every part of that transfers over into this world. So yeah. And as we built the sales team, we were building the sales team, but every single meeting was about, this is more than sales. This is a testing ground for what we're going to be able to go do in the real world. So it's not like this surprise that we were building this sales team and we were having success making a lot of money. And that's what we were going to do forever. We knew that it was a testing ground for the big opportunity.
I like what you said. You said as a salesperson, you're betting on yourself every single day. You have to be competitive. And I think that's why you see a lot of professional athletes that get into business, they get into entrepreneurship post-retirement, and they excel is because they have that competitive mindset. They don't like being told no. They want to play to win the game. And so I think there's a lot of parallels there. I'm curious real quick. So, because I'm always into the sales stuff. With selling timeshares, which is what you were doing for quite some time, what is that sales process kind of like? Because, traditionally sales process is like, okay, you try to identify the person's biggest pain point and their biggest challenge that they can use some help with, right? But with the timeshare, how would you guys kind of tee up that sale right there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that it goes to, for me in sales, it starts with, what are you passionate about? So we had a team that was just extremely passionate about hospitality, travel experiences, vacation. So number one, that belief in what you're doing, it really all starts with that transference. But that process is really unique in timeshare because it's crazy because I've been asked since my timeshare career to help a lot of people with sales. But typically sales that people are wanting what you have. They're like calling in to schedule a call with you because they may want to consider being in your mastermind. Timeshare sales is the opposite. You are paying somebody to sit in front of you for 60 minutes that has made a blood pact that no matter what, they don't want what you have and they hate what you have.
And how do you get them out there? Is this like a lead magnet type of thing? You're like, hey, we're going to give you a free weekend stay out here in Hawaii. Come check it out. It's on us. And then the only ask is you got to sit through a 1 hour sales pitch, basically.
Oh, there's a billion different. I mean, the timeshare fly trap is it's everywhere. Yes, there's packages. Somebody could be walking down the street and offered an activity. Hey, if you go on this activity, we were working for a company where we were meeting with the people that were already involved in that company's timeshare program. So they were already owners. So they would be walking around. They knew if they got approached by a concierge and they said, here's $200 to go to dinner with, or here's this activity, you can go out on a sailboat or a sunset cruise or whatever it is, but you got to sit through the presentation.
Now, how do you qualify these folks? Because obviously you don't want people going out there and taking advantage of the free stuff if they're not even qualified from an income standpoint to purchase the offer that you have. And so how did you guys qualify these folks on the front end before you give them this package?
Yeah, the marketing team there was a full-on process. We were very fortunate in sales that we had every one of our opportunities delivered to us. So I was never involved on the marketing side, but there was a whole process. They'd have to check off all the boxes of income and all of these different components that qualified them.
Interesting. Okay. And so they would come out here. You guys would run this 1 hour or whatever it is.
55 minutes.
55-minute pitch. What was that kind of like? I'm just curious. Walk me through that. I've never done one before.
Well, if you hadn't done one before, it would be different because it would be probably a 90-minute presentation. You'd work with what's called a frontline sales team. The frontline sales team has a much lower closing percentage. People don't, you're educating people on what, first of all, timeshare even is, and they go through a process. But ultimately, That process is about gaining the commitment that it's all about commitment gaining. It's about gaining the commitment that somebody is going to travel, that vacations mean something. If you actually look at our website today in hospitality, there's the six human emotional needs that I learned from Tony Robbins. And those 6 human emotional needs and those motivators are what we looked for during the sales process. What is this person motivated by? You mentioned pain points. What are their pain points? What are the challenges and problems that they're facing? And then how can we go and solve them? And then how can we make it emotional? Because ultimately, you can't put a value on the fulfillment of someone's emotional needs.
So give me an example of a typical emotional pain point of someone that's out there interested in buying a timeshare.
Okay, let's talk about someone that's driven. Let's talk about me. I'm driven by providership or contribution. It's one of the 2 spiritual needs. So if my goal is to provide for someone, for my family, it's a thing that drives me, but yet I'm on vacation and I'm staying I can only afford to stay in a 2-star property, and I take my family there, and then I go to this timeshare resort and they walk me around and they have this sick pool, swim up bars. You go into the suites and they're 2 bedrooms, and it's like, you touch that pain point with me as, where are you staying? So for the money that you're currently spending, you're staying in that, where what would your family experience be like if you provided this for them? And all of a sudden, they're touching this emotional motivator. I feel like if I don't say yes to this, that I'm going back to deliver my family something that's inferior. And so I mean, I haven't talked timeshare sales in a long time, but that's an example.
And that comes down to like basic, masculinity with men. Men are, they want to provide for their families. They want to provide for their spouses if they can, if they have the means to do it, they'd like to. I think all men would like to. So I think that's I like that pain point.
But it's the same exact thing that if I have a mastermind, or if I have a community, it's the exact same thing, right? Like, the decision that they're going to make is going to impact them in one way or the other. And if I believe that it's going to be better for them, if I believe that it's better for one of our investors, if I can show them the returns that we're currently gaining out of our business model, which are freaking fat margins and big returns, if I can take one of our investors and have a conversation with them and show them that in their life, they're not getting that. And then what does that prevent them? What are those pain points? Their life is focused on this. How can I focus on something and deliver something more to them? And then connect that to those emotional motivators, whether it's, this is going to allow them the freedom to connect with their wife, or this is going to allow them to have freedom to go and have variety in their life, where they get new experiences because now they have the financial and time freedom to do so. Right. So you're right. It all transfers, whether it's timeshare sales or sales of a product in general. There's parallels in all of it.
Yeah, it's crazy now that I think about it, like the number of parallels between having a sales background or skills in sales and building a real estate investing business. It's sourcing deals, talking to brokers, that's sales. Getting a broker to have confidence that you can take a deal to the finish line they bring you a good deal, that's sales. Convincing a lender to fund one of your deals, that is all sales. And then raising private capital from investors, that's sales. Hiring and retaining good team members, that's sales. You got to sell your team the vision. That's all sales. And then, all the back end stuff, asset management. If you use third party property management, working with those folks, it's all sales. It all kind of goes hand in hand, dude. And so, the more I think about it, the more I realize I'm like, man, I'm very lucky that I had a sales background as well. I sold cell phones and I sold cars early on when I was younger. And that was before my air traffic days. And in air traffic, I didn't use any sales. But all those skills from back in the day, they all apply to today.
Yeah, well, and I think that the reality is it's your ability to communicate and your vision and to persuade what needs to occur for the benefit of both, right? That's key. And, going back and just hearing you say that, it was like, man, we hit some challenges going into COVID, where the first commercial property that we purchased, our hard money note was coming due right as COVID hit, and the frickin' lenders, our permanent lenders, backed out at the 11th hour. Now COVID is here, it's March, and we're like, nobody's going to lend to us. We went to every single lender, and we're like, so we went back to that first bank we were negotiating with, and that moment was one where not accepting no, going through that process as a having gone through sales and knowing that no is not no. It just means that we need to take another approach. We need to continue the conversation. If I did not have that sales background, and if I didn't have that belief and know that I could get to that yes, that I just needed to get to that yes no matter what it took, we would not be sitting here having this conversation right now. We would have been done.
Were you able to negotiate like an extension with your current lender in that situation?
Well, it was hard money, and I mean, maybe we could have. They were saying no at the time. We didn't have to, because we ended up getting the. I mean, we went to the top. It got nuts. Let's just say that. But we made it happen, and we had to change the approach and change some of the terms, but we did it, and that allowed us then to, in the midst of COVID, to really pivot.
I'm curious what the key was there for getting that loan done, because I think lending is like I think of it as the 90-10 rule. 10% of the lenders out there, the brokers, I call them gamers. They understand the game, they get the game, they know how to push loans through, and they do 90% of the business. And I feel like the other 90% of lenders out there are just mediocre. They're vanilla. They don't know how to push loans through. They're just like yes men and yes woman, and they compete for the other 10% of the business. That's just how the game works. And so I think I would say if you meet a lender that's a gamer, you got to build that relationship with them, keep them tight. And, same thing, like getting creative financing stuff done, especially getting like second position loans done, all this sort of stuff. It's like, it's a numbers game. You might have to ask 100 people to get one yes, but it's that one yes is what's going to change the game for you. So what did you guys do specifically when everyone said no in the middle of COVID to get this loan done?
Okay. So number one, unfortunately, it had to start with a threat. So, I had to say, look, you are a local lender, and every commercial that you create is helping small businesses succeed. And so if at the 11th hour you're going to pull out when you've already made a commitment to us because of what's happening, then I'm going to everyone. State representatives, social media, I'm telling this story because you will ruin us. So I want to have a call with everybody, the highest ups that exist. So I wanted the decisions maker there that could make exceptions. And that first threat, and followed up with an email, that got us into the room or the call with the right people. So we had all the right people on the call. That was key. Secondly, I knew that we had to stay where we were and take some no's and get all of their objections out. And then we also knew that we were going to make a proposition at the end, but they had to say no multiple times first. So we had to go all in instead of just giving them, will you do this? We went with exactly what the terms were and kept circling and circling and circling. And then we wore them down a little bit to the point where then I said, well, what if we did this? If these are your objections, then if I could overcome them by doing this, this, and this, would you lend to us? And what that was we created a 24-month reserve. And so we put more money in the deal. And there were a couple of things that we did to, at the end, change the approach. But staying on the original offer first and taking 6 or 7 no's and saving that back pocket negotiation, change the approach at the end, allowed them to save face and say, oh, well, if you're willing to do that, then yes.
Yeah. And this is, the asset is a commercial property. It's a retail location, correct?
Yes. We were in the process of converting it. We purchased it because we were going to convert it into a hostel. And
And you couldn't get the permitting or the entitlement to do that, right?
Well,
Ultimately,
yeah, because COVID hit, and then during COVID, they changed the zoning. So unless you had already been operating as a hotel, they shut that zoning down. So we were done.
damn.
And then that's where we went with our pivot.
And
And
what was the pivot? The pivot was just to operate as the traditional retail
oh yeah, so Mike's unbelievable at
pivoting.
he's really, really good at executing. So when he recognized, all right, now we got a commercial space, boom, he just starts solving it, right? All right, so now let's go create this into a valuable triple net commercial property. And the thing's a cash cow for us now. Again, we forced equity. It's great. It's done. But the pivot was in the middle of COVID. We had a vision to go, and we knew that hostels allowed us the opportunity to take an approachable piece of real estate. Hotels on Maui, there hasn't been a hotel traded on Maui for under 25 million. So that was not in our ballpark. We're bootstrapping this thing, right? So we recognized that with hostels, you could find these approachable pieces of hotel zoned real estate, but for a fraction of the cost. And so we pivoted during COVID while everybody else was sitting still. Nobody thought that hostels, I mean, think about it, shared accommodations during COVID. People thought we were absolute idiots to just keep we're like, no, let's go attack this vision. This is the time to take advantage. And that's what happened. We started knocking on doors, and we were able to unearth an opportunity of a hostel owner that was sitting there, ghost town, everything closed down, thinking the world was coming to an end. And we opened up an opportunity for ourselves to really create a significant amount of quick success.
Would you say that getting lending for a hostel is much more challenging than other asset classes?
I would say that in the beginning, first of all, we seller financed both. So both of the hostels that we purchased originally, and then we did a refi. I would say that in the past 3 years, we've now become an expert operator where we're award winning, right? We've become the best small hostel in North America. So that proven operational skill set that we have, I think gives us an advantage. I would say overall, if you're beginning, this is your first hospitality asset, and you go in and say, hey, I want to take this and get traditional lending, and I'm going to go the hostel model without expertise or partnership with an expert hostel operator, I think that's going to be more challenging than a hotel.
And by the way, I just want to shout this out real quick for the listeners listening that don't know. Nathan and Michael are the hostelworld.com North American Small Hostel of the World year winner of 2024 with your hostel on Maui, which is impressive. How do you go about winning that award?
If you love real estate investing, passive income, and tax benefits, but don't have the time, my company, Summers Capital, is buying boutique hotels right now. We source the deals, we renovate the properties, and we even handle all the day-to-day management, making it truly hands-off for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, visit summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show.
It's based on guest reviews. It's, Hostelworld they are the most valuable hostel entity. They are an OTA, but for specific to hostels, and it's based on guest reviews. So we went in, and one of the biggest advantages that we had, I did not know 5 years ago what a hostel was. I mean, I'd heard of these, but look, I've been living on Maui since I was a 19-year-old kid. I didn't know what hostels were, but that turned out to be really our biggest advantage, is being able to go into this opportunity with a different mindset. Instead of going into the opportunity with a hostel mindset, we went into it from the business side and then the guest journey side. So we started building based on our standards versus the hostel industry standards. We went in and started looking at things from how to optimize and maximize every square inch of a property based on room configuration. we went in and we looked at things from the standpoint of how can we go and utilize technology to an advantage. So we just had a different mindset going in, and obviously, it paid off as people that had no experience with hostels in less than 3 years to be number one in North America.
Yeah. And winning that award, I mean, it's got to be huge for you guys from a perspective of getting more guests at your other properties, but also from a lending perspective moving forward now. It's like, hey, we're the big dogs. And so lenders are going to feel much more comfortable with that.
That was my point. So when you ask me that question in general, it's like, okay, well, generally speaking, somebody may have more of a challenge. For us, we do have the advantage of being expert, award-winning.
Is there a play to franchise the hostel model? I mean, you guys have a brand now. You won the award now. Is there a play to franchise this and expand throughout, North America or maybe worldwide using your guys' brand?
Yes. Well, there is. We've gone through in the beginning stages. I think it's important to look at the market as a whole. First of all, the U.S. market, because that's critical. When we decided to do something big, we created this vision to create a $400 million hospitality company off of a $400,000 down payment.
Yes, it's crazy.
$400,000 down payment is going to become a $400 million hospitality company.
And that's the true power of commercial real estate investing right there.
Hands down, right? And so...
And real quick, for people that are trying to understand how you possibly take $400K and go to $400 million, you guys put $400,000 down on your first property. You're buying underperforming assets. You're making them nice. You're increasing the income. You're making them perform well. And now they're worth a lot more. You're refining cash out. You're rolling that cash into more opportunities that are undervalued, underperforming. You're increasing the value. And that compounded over weeks, months, years, and decades is how you take the $400K to $400 million.
That's it. It's that simple, right? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we've done to this point. So in the beginning, we talked about, well, how are we going to get to that 400 million? And we talked about there are some, both in Asia and in Europe, there are a few companies that do that model where they're looking at franchising. For us, we just have a passion for real estate development. And so for us, being able to syndicate, eventually create a fund, that's really the route that we decided to go. So we've decided to go in the direction of syndication and then ultimately a fund.
Yeah. So you're out here in San Diego right now, and you told me before we started recording, you're like, dude, the weather is amazing this trip. I'm like, no, the weather's like this year round, dude. He's like, dude, it's like perfect weather. He's like, I picked the perfect time to come out. I'm like, no, the weather's like this year round.
Yeah, well, we're
75 and sunny, bro.
I'm going to look at. I'm here also looking at. We're in the process of negotiation on a few different properties, and for purchase. So I'm going to look at them after this. And I'm walking around this morning, and I'm like, this is like am I going to be skewed by this? But coming from Maui, it's not often where you go from Maui, where we have basically this freaking unbelievably perfect weather, to another destination that has perfect weather. So I'm freaking
it's almost better than Hawaii weather, because we don't get a lot of like tropical rainfall.
Yeah,
it just like literally it's dry Mediterranean climate that's like, never gets colder than 60, never gets warmer than 80, no humidity, and very dry. By the way, before I forget, Oscar, we got to get you a microphone because you always have good input. And I'm thinking that second guest chair mic right there that never gets used, because I only have one guest on at a time. I don't like having two guests on. I've done it before, but it's just like it's an awkward conversation, because I'll ask a question, and then the guest will be like, hey, do you want to take this or should I take it? And it's kind of like it makes for like an uncomfortable, kind of weird like conversation. So now I just do like one-on-one. And if someone's like, hey, can I bring my partner? I'm like, hey, like I'm happy to like bring him on like separately, but let's just have a one-on-one conversation. So anyways, all that to say is Oscar always has good input. He's always over there laughing, a lot of like sidebar stuff. So I gotta get you a mic, dude. Maybe we'll bring that second mic over. Yeah. Anyways, so you're in town, you're looking at the next property to buy. You guys are looking at bigger deals, which I love. What does ultimately, like, what's that search criteria look like as you guys envision this next opportunity?
Yeah. So we have learned a tremendous amount. Um, the next opportunity, a couple of the really important things that we did this year, we hired a business coach and we hired a fractional CFO so that we could really dial in and understand, like, what is it that we really need? We are going to grow, but we're going to grow in the right and responsible way. So we have our checklist.
What did you learn with the business coach? And we're talking Rick English.
Yeah. Rick English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been working with Rick for like 2.5 years now. Game changer for me. I meet with him every single week for an hour. I'm curious, what did you guys learn from Rick that was moved the needle for you guys?
Okay. 80% of our time in the beginning was on operations, right? Now, and it's funny, we just did an episode on operations on the Hotel Investor Playbook podcast that we released, and we took our EOS, our entrepreneur operating system that Rick helped us integrate into our business.
Nice. I love it.
We just went through that operational piece, and we've gone from 80% of our time being involved in operations and 20 working on the business to 3 hours a week on operations.
Damn.
Yeah. So,
and what percentage of the time now would you say you're working on the business versus in the business?
95% on the business.
Wow.
And
just simply by implementing a good operating system like EOS.
Yeah. By
Damn.
Rick taking us through and going through and creating, looking at every single function, every function component, creating responsibility to each one of them, and then creating a meeting weekly that really addresses keeping score. It's been monumental to the impact that it's had on our time. Between that and hiring an executive assistant has been just game changing for Mike and I.
Yeah, I think the functions are big, but I think, like, most importantly, having one person own each function. And it doesn't mean that one team member has to do all the work within the function, but they're ultimately responsible for it to get done is big. Having the scorecard is big. The accountability is big. But yeah, I mean, you can really run the entire week of the business with that one L10 meeting.
Yeah.
If you do it correctly.
Yeah, well, we do. And then we also transfer now to Mike and I, when we do our investment arm, our Malama Capital meeting, we do the same thing. We go through our 90-day objectives, on track, off track. We just, boom, it's the guiding force behind everything we do. And now that we've added 2 additional team members, now they're joining that meeting and they have ownership and functions. And that's been game changing for us.
Yeah. I'm glad that you guys ended up doing that and moving forward and really hashing out the back end before you move on to the next thing. I always say, like, we did the same thing. We bought our last deal in April, and I was like, you know what? I think it would be counterproductive for us to go buy another deal. I'm like, we gotta like really focus on operations right now. We got 4 hotels that are gonna be refinancing here in the next 12 months. I'm like, let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's get through all these renovations. Let's stabilize these assets. Let's really maximize our NOI. Work on our revenue management, and then really lean out the expenses as much as we possibly can so we can, set these deals up for nice refis. And so we took a little pause from buying, you know what I mean? Because that's a big distraction bringing on a whole new project. And so we did the same thing as you guys. We kind of just worked on a lot of the back end stuff. And so now we're in a really good spot. So I think going into Q1 of next year, we're in a good spot to where we have flexibility now and we can kind of go whatever direction that we want to.
Yeah, that was difficult for us being in the group. And, man, if we look at the Mastermind group and how much success it's having and people taking down their first deal left and right?
Yeah.
I was like, while Mike and I are like focused on building our infrastructure, and we're like, it's, as a competitor, it's difficult to just watch deals going down left and right. But we knew ultimately that it was the healthiest thing for us to do. And now we are really set up. We are set up we've created a foundation that we can really build on and build something big on.
Yeah. And now you guys have even more confidence going into this next deal. It'll be your first capital raise because you guys haven't raised capital to this point, right?
Correct.
So you have more confidence going into it, which is going to be huge. So tell me, what's the search criteria for this next deal?
Yeah. So we've learned that we need to be in an area that has a market that has a substantial amount of travelers for our business model. Because our business model in hostel, you can find these little hostels along the coast all over. There's a lot of killer places, but typically those are going to involve having an owner that's involved with the business, and we're not. We have a staff heavy business model where we lead a team and we provide experiential travel. So we're looking for urban areas that don't have a ton of competition. We're looking in right now here in San Diego because 52 weeks out of the year, it's beautiful. And although it does have seasonality to it, the seasons aren't as dramatic as, going up north or ski resorts, things like that. So this next criteria we've gotten really broken down into what are the amount of travelers. We look for value add, these unique opportunities where they're hotel zoned, but they're more approachable for us because you look at these buildings that we're going to look at and they're not perfect for somebody to turn into a boutique hotel. They're just, they may have shared bathrooms, or they may have, they're just shared community spaces that in a hotel does not, it's not what somebody's looking. The infrastructure would be way too much for that person to purchase. So we're able to go in and purchase a value add opportunity if they are running as a hostel, that they have great location in the hostel world scores, but they have poor scores everywhere else. And so that's one of the
Because
first.
the location is the one thing you can't change.
You can't change the location. So if the location, and it doesn't have to be the same type of location as when you go and look at a boutique hotel, that location is paramount. And when we look at a location, it's like, okay, is it close to transit? So our location criteria may be different than what a boutique hotel is, and that makes it advantageous for us to get a more approachable opportunity, but where we can absolutely crush revenue. So if we have the amount of travelers, we instill our business model. If it's in a high travel area with a location where there's transit, in an urban place like San Diego, we're going to crush.
I think that you guys would control this market because there's not a lot of there's no really nice hostels out here. The ones that I know of in San Diego are like rundown, C-class, deferred maintenance, kind of gross. So I think if you guys can bring a hostel or a product to this marketplace similar to what you guys have already done out in Hawaii, I think that you guys would control the marketplace. But I'm curious, like, how do you guys look when you size up a deal? How do you guys determine, okay, we obviously know there's upside going into it, but if no one's proven out the model in, let's say, San Diego market, they've never done what you guys are going to do, how do you know exactly what the upside is going to be? Because you don't really have anything to compare it to.
Well, we're going to go in and do our research on what is here. So, I'll peel back down on every single hostel that is here and what are their ADRs. We'll go in. It's kind of cool because, when you go to the Hostel World app, it shows how many people have booked on Hostel World.
Oh, so you can determine their occupancy.
So you don't see their occupancy, but you can see, comparatively speaking, which hostel has the most Hostel World guests staying there. So it'll say 5+ or 10+ or 20+. And so you get a feel for, okay, this hostel is generating based on this ADR. What's their review score? What is the experience profile that they're providing? And then, we can figure out, well, how many rooms, how many beds, and we can get it down pretty darn well what somebody's bringing in from a revenue standpoint, based on our knowledge.
And then do you just say, hey, like, conservatively, based on the competition, this is what we think we can do? Because if this place got X,
yes,
we're going to be 50% better, but we're only going to underwrite for being 10% better than X, and these numbers work for our model. But the upside, although we don't know exactly what the upside is, conservatively, we know we can hit this number, but the upside might be above and beyond that.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. It's just gravy on top.
And we won't even go in and underwrite. We're going to underwrite very conservatively because that's our nature. Mike's
it's good business practice.
Yeah, and Mike he's really head of acquisitions, and he's going to take that. He's going to make sure that the purchase is right. So I have a massive amount of faith in him. He'll lean on me for some of the research and the feel for what it'll generate. But yeah, we won't even underwrite to the highest ADR in the market. We're gonna go below what the highest ADR is. We're gonna go below what we believe the occupancy is, and then we're gonna leave that for upside. So for our investors, when we go through and present them what our targeted returns are going to be, we're going to have, here's targeted returns, and then here's what we believe the upside is.
I'm curious for someone listening to this, because I think the boutique hotel model is trending up right now with, Airbnb regulations going away. There's tightening in a lot of markets, a lot of oversaturation. And so you're seeing a lot of Airbnb investors kind of naturally look for that next progression. And so I feel like the boutique hotel model is trending up. But for someone listening to this right now and they're like, hey, I'm interested in boutique hotels, but not a lot of people talk about the hostel model, especially here in the US. What are some pros and cons of going the hostel model versus the hotel that maybe someone should consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, number one, when we look at, because we're expanding into boutique hotels as well, but what we really look at is what does the specific asset say? So what is the building itself telling us it wants to become? Hospitality is in the end creating a feeling, right? That's what we have to do. We're going to get paid based on what feeling we can go and create. So what is the asset? What's the highest and best use of the asset? Is the highest and best use of the asset a hostel? Or is the highest and best use of the asset a boutique hotel? And so the pros and cons, number one, you can't fit a square peg in a round hole. Is that what they say? Right? Yet, you want to make sure that you have the right asset type and you've got the right business model to go with it. I also think that from the hostel standpoint, I believe that although the hostel community can be more forgiving, it is a very different dynamic to try to go and from having no experience to create and understand. I think there's more risk involved with the person that doesn't know and isn't an expert in creating that experience and knowing what the nuances of the hostel industry is. From the boutique hotel side, okay, somebody that's coming out of, short-term rentals that has been operating remotely and that natural progression to implement a lot of those systems into some of those, 10 to 20 room exterior corridor, remotely managed properties, I think is more of a natural progression and will align a little bit more with their experience. So the draw, you're going to pay more upfront for the asset. You're going to probably need to, when you're new coming in, unless you have the capital, you're going to need to partner, which is going to dilute your returns. The pro for a hostel is that you're going to have more approachable real estate. You may have more risk.
What do you mean we say approachable real estate?
Approachable real estate cost. So like if we look at the properties that we've purchased, again, because they don't have a bathroom in every room, they're shared accommodations, that asset is not going to be valued. It's not going to, on the marketplace, you're not going to have everybody looking for a hotel. They're going to look
less demand.
Yeah.
Less competition.
There's less competition, there's less demand. It's less valuable in its current state. And more often than not, they're not optimizing revenue, and you have an awesome opportunity to force that equity.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm curious about the demographic because I've stayed in hostels traveling like internationally. And I've always stated the hostels that have the best reviews. And for the most part, the demographic is really good. But I noticed with when we had 2 bunk rooms here at Zindel, our 24-unit boutique hotel here. And for the listeners, this is a 24-unit hotel here in downtown San Diego, Little Italy. And traditionally, the prior ownership, which we bought the property from, they had 2 of the 24 rooms were at the bottom of this. It's like a 3-story building, and the bottom floor just had 2 rooms. And those rooms, they were operating as by the bed model. They had 6 beds in each room, and those were their 2 highest performing units. And so we thought, okay, We had 3 years of financials. They were hands down their highest performing units. We're like, let's double down on those 2 rooms. Let's keep them as by the bed. Let's double down on the bed count. So instead of 2 high, we went 3 high. We did nice brand new custom built-in bunks. So we went from 12 beds to 21 beds. And what we noticed was when we repositioned the property, we were attracting a nice higher end demographic for the rooms upstairs, the traditional rooms, but we were attracting a lower demographic for those 2 bottom bunk rooms. And so we noticed a lot of our poor reviews were coming from the upstairs guests complaining about this lower demographic, and that was what's driving these poor reviews. And so we recently decided to reposition those 2 bottom rooms to like really large, nice 2-bedroom suites to just kind of eliminate that discrepancy in demographic. But I'm curious for you, because when I travel in the hostel space, it's typically pretty nice demographic. But what we noticed here in like downtown San Diego is it wasn't the case. We were dealing with a lot of like transient guests that were like, want to stay for weeks at a time that like maybe live here locally. You know what I'm saying? And so what is that like for you guys? 'Cause I'm sure Maui is very touristy.
Number one, we have very strict rules against that.
Okay, how do you combat that?
You have to have proof of an off-island ticket. You're coming in, you're traveling, and you're going out. So we have a 14-day max stay. So this is a huge part of making sure that you create the right community at your hostel. So number one, you put those processes in place. Number two, we are marketing to hostel guests as a hostel. So if we're a hotel with hostel beds and we're marketing more as a hotel, we're not going to get the community, the hostel community. That's not what they're looking for. See, the hostel community, they may be willing, they're not just looking for the cheapest bed that exists. They're looking for something specific, right? If we look at our clientele is made up, 80% it's Gen Z, right? So they're going to be, 20 to 30 year olds or, late millennials. And what they're looking for is a community feel. They want to go have experiences. I mean, everything, if we look at any of the research of hospitality market, experiential travel is there's more organic growth with experiential travel than anywhere else. And Gen Zers, that's what they're looking for. We've created a business model around experiential travel in the region that focuses on a generation that doesn't have the stigma of a hostel. Look, Gen Z has grown up with co-living spaces, Uber, with Airbnbs. The runway has already been foamed for the Gen Z hostelers. But that's what they're looking for. So if you're not marketing as a community, as a hostel community, then you're not going to draw those epic guests that you want that are going to create this unbelievable experience, that are looking to come and create friendships and go travel, do things together.
And those are the guests that are going to help you build your business ultimately, because they're going to write the reviews, they're going to attract other good guests, and really they just create the whole vibe, and that makes total sense.
And strategically, Rich, we actually, people complain about OTA commissions. In fact, a couple of the hostels on Maui, they've contacted us several times and said, let's boycott Hostel World, right? So we don't have to pay the 15% commission. Let's all be on the same page. And we're like, no. And we actually chose strategically, let's try to get as many Hostel World guests as we can. And the reason for that is because, just like you just said, those hostel guests are the ones that are looking for hostels. They're booking on Hostel World. They're looking for that community, and they create the community and the experience. So then when you have other people that are joining, maybe it's their first hostel experience, they already have the community there that's creating the fun experience, that's getting everybody out there, that's breaking the ice for everybody and creating a magical experience.
Yeah, I like that, man. That makes a lot of sense. And so, you guys coming out to San Diego, I think that you will have to definitely probably have a little bit more filter on the front end than you probably do in Maui. I just speculating here, but from what I've seen, you're probably going to have to weed out a little bit more guests. One thing that we did implement was like anyone with a local phone number, we just wouldn't even allow stay. But now that we're pivoting over to the hotel thing, with those 2 bottom rooms, we won't have to worry about it. But I could see you guys having to have a stronger filtering process, at least here.
Definitely. And we've had one of our first general managers came from Hollywood. So he's the one that implemented a lot of these processes. And imagine in Hollywood, so I can see how it's much more difficult when you don't have 2,500 miles of big blue sea between you and your traveler, where they can just drive in. And how do you define who's a traveler and who's not?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that there's a potential play, or you guys have explored it, franchising this model. What does that look like if you were to franchise your model?
We didn't do a dive into it deep enough to where I could really communicate what ultimately the benefit is, other than we looked at a couple of the models that were out there in India and Asia, and we just pivoted away from it because we wanted to be able to control the real estate and our own brand and create enterprise value in our brand itself. So that's what we made that pivot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would be curious to see what that kind of looked like. But, I mean, the franchise model, it works well in business, but I think as a real estate investor, the true value is owning the real estate. But maybe you could do the franchise model like McDonald's does, where they own the real estate and they just have all these other operators. But, I mean, if you guys already have the systems and processes set up to self-operate, you have the SOPs and all that, maybe it just makes sense that you guys just self-operate.
Yeah, well, and that's what I think that's what we've really gone, hey, look, if we can go and purchase $150 million worth of real estate, we will be a $400 million company, right? We'll use our leverage and our expertise to create that, couple $100 million of value add. That's the route that we've determined to take.
Yeah. So I'm curious with you and Mike, who's typically the one that's traveling, doing the conferences, all that sort of thing? I know Mike was at Blake Daly's Hotel Con, and I don't know if it was both of you were at, was it Ben Wolf's thing out in Fredericksburg not too long ago?
Yeah.
Was that both of you guys?
Yeah. So we completed a podcast in the short-term rental space. They had us on, and then afterwards, Zach Bucharest was like, I slaughter his last name every time. But anyway, they invited us to this experiential lodging unique stays inaugural summit. So both Mike and I attended that. And then from there, Mike went to
Hotel Con.
And then I went to Tulum and did a mastermind in Tulum.
For Brian Lubin's?
Yep.
What was that like? Because I want to do our Mastermind Retreat next year in Tulum. What was it like out in Tulum?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a recovering alcoholic. And so Mike, when I said, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Tulum after the experiential stay summit, he's like, you're going where? And I said, Tulum. And he goes, do you know anything about Tulum? And I'm like, a little, not really. Why? And he goes, basically it's a freaking rave in the jungle. And I'm like, he's like, are you going to be okay? And I'm like, look, man, I'm freaking 18 years sober.
Yeah, you don't even think about it anymore.
I'm going to be good. And, but it was really an unbelievable experience. Not because it was Tulum. I mean, look, Brian put on, dude, he's spinning records. He's a DJ, and he's got freaking fire.
Oh, really?
He's got fire dancers, and we had literally a rave at one of the main homes. It was,
my gosh,
dude, it was pretty epic. But it was way more about being in Tulum and networking and connecting and breaking through, being vulnerable, all of the important things that you get to do in person that I think you miss over just our calls.
Yeah. So how did Brian have it set up in Tulum? Was it like one big property everyone stayed at, or was it multiple properties? How did that work?
He had 5 badass frickin' mansion-y castle type places out in the frickin' jungle.
Really?
All within about 15 minutes of each other.
Damn.
Yeah. And so then we do different events at different ones. But he had it extremely well organized, and you felt like you were the frickin' man.
Really? That's so sick. I'm excited to do ours out there. I'll have to get with Brian.
Yeah.
I was on his mastermind call last night. You were on the call as well. Yeah, I'll have to definitely get with him to see what that's like. I've always wanted to do Tulum. I've never been there before personally. I always thought it'd be cool to. How many people were there? I'm curious.
There were about 100. I think there were about 70 members and 30 of their spouses. They took great care of the spouses. They actually had them participate in a lot of the things. Mike and I, we actually did an episode after we got back from this, just talking about our experience. And, because a lot of people are always like, are these mastermind conferences worth it? And it was like, we had just gotten back, so we did a full breakdown and episode on our takeaways from it. But man,
so are they worth it?
Unequivocally, yes.
Yeah, I like that. And by the way, congrats on the new podcast, the Hotel Investor Playbook podcast. So if you're a listener, you're interested in the hotel stuff, the hostel stuff, you want to learn more about it, go check it out, the Hostel Investor Playbook. Congrats on that. And then you guys are opening an office and a podcast studio?
Yeah, so we're not there yet. We've received final loan approval, though, for our fourth commercial property. It's actually right next door to our hostel. And so it's going to be our How's It Hospitality headquarters. And as time goes on, we will turn it into our little training center where we can when we're opening a new property, we can bring the team out, have them train with us, have a great experience on Maui. It's also, it's mixed use. So we also use it for employee housing, and it's really going to be, I think, a foundational component to our growth.
Yeah. Out there in Maui, do you guys are you guys required from like the local level to have some sort of like X amount of housing units for like employees and stuff like that?
No,
you're not. Okay. I know like some areas like Catalina Island, for example, they do have that mandate. So if you have a hotel out there, like X amount of your rooms have to be dedicated to like long-term housing.
So there is that. If you're developing something new, then yes. Like when we went through that first property, that was one of the things that we came in under the proposed amount and proposed rooms that you would need to have to implement that. There's a workforce, some sort of workforce ordinance. So you're right, there is that on Maui, but we've not had to address that.
Yeah. Side note, I'm going to be coming out to Maui sometime in the next few months. Maybe if not end of this year, early next year. But I'm going to do a couple podcasts out there. Brandon Turner, used to be the Bigger Pockets host, and then also Tyler Devereaux. And so they're both in Maui. I'd love to, maybe we can do a podcast with you guys on your show as well.
Yeah, man, we'd love to have you. It's crazy. Maui's a pretty incredible place. I've done it backwards, right? I traveled out there when I was a 19-year-old kid, not chasing rainbows and waterfalls, but chasing a girl. And I'm married to her this day. But
nice, dude. Congrats. How long you guys been married for?
But yeah, so we've been together since 1995.
Whoa.
We got married in 2004. But she always makes me revert back to 1995 when I answer that question.
Yeah.
She's like, you took so long.
Dude, congrats, man. You don't even look that old, bro.
But yeah.
You look my age.
Dude, man. I'm the frickin' everywhere in all of these, circles. I'm always the old guy.
And you have 2 kids or 1 kid?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters. How old are they?
They are 11 and 15.
Okay.
Man, it's the greatest blessing in my life, without question. It gets talked about the least, but is really being a husband and a father. I'm a girl dad, and I couldn't ask for anything else in this world than to really grow these 2 daughters and spend time with them. It's my greatest blessing.
I love it. Nate, appreciate you coming on, my man. Always been inspired with everything that you guys are doing. Keep crushing. I'm excited to follow along your journey. I'm excited to see where you guys go next. Keep inspiring all the people out there. Where can the folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, if someone wants to learn more about the hostel industry or hotel investing, that maybe they're not that far along in their journey, they can check out the podcast, the Hotel Investor Playbook. and our Instagram handle, the Hotel Investor Playbook, and the website, the Hotel Investor Playbook. So
There you go.
just
Nice
remember
and
that.
easy. Cross branding. Well, there it is. He's Nate. Saints here. I'm Rich Numbers listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.